Morning, Kumlan al Gemara. We are up to today, Daf Ches Amid Allah, the very top of the page. I got it to all come to an end. We're going back to the laws of Shchita. That's the first Mishnah started, Hakol Shecht, and everyone can Shecht. Now, the whole idea was that a knife should be very, very sharp because we want to make it as painless as possible. Tzar Balachayim is a big issue. And all the dinim of Shchit, the different psulim of Shchit is all because it delays and it prolongs the tzar of the animal. So all the dinim, as you go through them, you'll see the whole purpose is to make the tzar as minimal as possible. So Amar Abzeda said, Amar Shmuel Nemer Shmuel, Libein Sakin. What happens? You actually heated up the knife, the chaluf. So it's a sharp knife, but you heated it up. Now, and then v'shachatba, you shechted it. The question is, did they kill the animal because of the heat of the knife? Then that's not shchita. Or is it the sharpness of the blade and the heat of the knife didn't really have any effect? So what happened was you heated up a knife, you malabin it, more than you heat up, you put it in the fire and v'shachatba, and then you went in and shechted. Shchitasik sheda. The shchita's kosher, we say that it was the knife, there was an incision that actually killed the animal. Why? And this is the word that he says, chiduda koidim lulevuna. The sharpness goes so quick that before the heat had a chance to have an impact, the animal already is geschachten. The reiv semanim. Now the handle you're holding is not hot.
No. When something hot touches the flesh, it doesn't have to have.
You're talking about the sakina, the friction.
So he's saying here that the knife here is sharp. It's the sides that are hot. What's hot? It's the sides of the sides, and here you have the sharp of the knife. The sharp of the knife cuts through so fast that the sides of the knife doesn't have a chance yet to have an impact. It's so instantaneous. The Gemara is going to go off completely on a tangent, as we'll see. But the knife, as it cuts through the actual veins, it's also, the simonim, the trachea and the esophagus, it's also impacting it with the heat. In other words, before you shechted, in order for shchit to be kosher, it has to go through the majority of the simonim. So you started making an incision. The width of the knife or the size of the knife is already inside the simonim, and before you got to the reiv simonim, the heat of the sides already impacted on the esophagus, on the trachea. So that therefore you burnt the animal. One answers, mirvach ravach. As you're slicing so fast, immediately it opens up a gap. So the sides of the knife are not touching any of the parts of the animal, not the trachea and not the esophagus. Big machek is a shiny of the halacha like Abzeda or not. Because in the Gemara here it seems like it is, but later on we'll learn another Gemara. The Gemara talks about you have to check a knife. Do you check the sides as well? And the Gemara this says you check the sides. The Gemara has a question. What Abzeda said that the sides don't matter. It's only the thing. So does that mean that they argued Abzeda, or does it mean there's such an obvious difference that we don't have to bother answering? Because when it comes to over the heat of the knife, you can be a bit more careful because you know the knife is hot. When it comes to checking the knife, you don't think there's pagumim on the side of the knife. You think the pagumim could only be with the shot, the blade, and therefore you're not aware of it, and therefore even Abzeda will be made in that case. It could affect the sides. Big machleik is a shame. Anyway, let's continue. Now we'll go totally on a tangent. We ask a question. Comes to tzaras. Something that causes leprosy can either be, there's all kinds of leprosy, things spontaneous, but you also have, sometimes you hit somebody very hard, they get a wound, it triggers a leprosy. And then you have sometimes, that's called shchin. Then you have something, you have a burn, and it gets hot, and it triggers a leprosy. And if you have two causes for leprosy, the second cause always quashes the first cause. So the question is going to be that if you are going to if somebody hits you with a knife that's a hot knife, a very hot knife, what's hitting you first? Is it the whack first and the heat afterwards? So then the shchin is first, and then you get a tzaras. The shchin was first, the mikveh was afterwards, and mikveh, therefore, it became now the cause of the tzaras? Or do we say no, that they happen that the mikveh, the heat comes first, and therefore the mikveh takes what do you call it? So it's for the first thing was the mikveh, and the second thing is the shchin, and the shchin therefore quashes the mikveh. And based on what Abzeda said, that when you cut the knife, the heat comes afterwards. So therefore, you would say the heat comes second. My nafkamina, what the cause is, we'll see in a minute. You malabin this shop with this what do you call it? This spit. And and you use to smack somebody. So what is it? Is it the sharpness, and is it the smacks? That's a shchin, or is it the heat, and that's mikveh? L'mainav kamina. What's the difference? Look at Tanya. We learned the following din. Shchina vichum metamin b'shvu echad. All other tzaras, and after 1 week, if it didn't grow anything else, we tell you stay another week. These two, if it doesn't grow after a week or new hairs didn't form, we let you go. We release you. So these two are tzaras are human in a way, are man-made, and therefore we have a different set of halachas. So shchina michla metamim b'shvu echad and b'shnei simonim. There are two signs that will make you tummy. Either sar lavim. Remember, in the beard is gold hair, and in the regular tzaras it's white hairs. Uber pissin, did it spread? But if it didn't, we don't make it stay a second week. The Lama Chilkan HaKosov says, Chayda, Shchina, Mikveh, both the same category. Why did the Taidim have separate dinim, one for Shchina, one for Mikveh? Loimer, to tell you, She'ein mitzarfen zemzeh. You need the size of a gris, like a half a bean. If you have a half a gris of Shchin and half of Mikveh, they're two separate categories, because if you put it in the same pasuk, you would think that it's one and the same. It's not a tzras. The time we learned, if you, let's say you got hit with a piece of wood or a stone, big gefes or the leftover of olives. No, these are all things might be hot, but it's not heat from a fire. Or bechamitz, which is also hot. And anything which is chamitz from the word from Gehenim. Or anything which is hot, but not because of the fire. Last to include also lead. If you take lead out of the ground, it's also a little bit hot. That's called shchin. The ezo mikveh. So what's called a mikveh? Mikveh begacheles. Poshet a hot coal, beremez hot ashes, besidrei seich and hot lime, bepigofsis reseich, another kind of a plaster that's hot. Or b'chol dover haba machne ur. Two separate categories. Lasuye chame ur, something which is directly affected by fire. Zui mikveh. Okay, so you have two categories, mikveh and shchin, and so what? The Tanya we learned is all part of the question, leading to the question. Shchin or mikveh? Im shchin kain mikveh. If let's say you had both two causes of tzaras. You had a shchin, somebody hit you, and then afterwards a mikveh, something in the fire. Is bitul mikveh a shchin? Whatever second quashes the first. If mikveh was second, it quashes the shchin. The mikveh kedem the shchin, but bitul shchin is a mikveh. So the question is as follows: over here. Hey, dummy, what's the case that we're talking about here? You're going to have shchin, mikora. You already had a half a gris of shchin, but it's not enough to be called a leper, even if it's spread anything else, because you need a gris. You already had a half a gris of shchin. The liben shaput. Now you took this shaput, you took the spit, and you heated it up. The hikaboy, and you hit you with it. The nafag bay chatze gris achen. Now suddenly you have another half a gris. The question is, if it's shchin, then they combine. If it's michveh, it's we need to know the status. Do we say chabot or kodim? The first thing was just the hit, and therefore that's the shchin. And then we'll say havola, and then came afterwards the heat and had an impact, which is michveh. Therefore the michveh cancels the shchin, and you only have now half a gris of the original shchin and half a gris of michveh. They don't combine. And therefore it cancels the smack. They don't combine. Maybe the heat impacts first, and the smack it came second. So the shchin was second. Cancels the havola, cancels the mikveh. So what do you have now? The original shchin of a half a gris and the second shchin, and they combine. That's my question. So Toshma, we're going to learn right here from Abzeda. What does Abzeda say about shchita? You take a chalif and you heat it up. You say it's kosher. Why? Because we say that the we say that the impact of the actual utensil came before the heat. So the same thing over there. That we'll say that the shchin comes before the mikveh. If you heated up the spit and you hit you, and you hit yourself, we're going to say that the shchin. That what do you call it? That the shchin came first. First is the smack, and then afterwards came the heat, and therefore whatever the consequence of that is. So that's what we're going to say. This impact is before the heat. Saying, well, that's different. Hidud shiny. He says because it's so sharp is different. Not the pshat is that first and second. The second doesn't even have an impact. The heat doesn't really have much of an impact. It's so quick and it's so sharp, the blade, that in and out. And therefore, it's not a question here. It's not a normal case that we're asking Liban Shapud and give a wallop with the Shapud, with that spit, what the status is. Toshma coming here. You can always join us, by the way. Toshma coming here. Liban shapud. It says, let's say you were malabin a shas you. Let's say you heated up a spit. The hikabah, you hit somebody with it. Nidain mishum michvis eish. It says clearly over here. We treat it as if what? As if it was fire. So it seems to me that first was the impact of the hit and only the fire comes afterwards. Alma chabot kodim. So we see that what the smack is first, and then afterwards the fire. So Gemara says again, no raya. Why? Hasam Nami over there is talking about that the Barzaya Mivris, there he gave a poke. He didn't hit you with the side of the thing. He stabbed you. He stabbed you. And therefore there's no real there's no real smack over here. It's only the heat, the blade that went inside. But we're talking about over here, asking a question, give you a smack with the side of the thing. So what's impacting you first, the smack or the heat? The Hainu Chidud, and we don't resolve the question. We're talking about different halachas about a knife. Sakin a sack, a chalif, that's avodah zara. You don't have any anor from avodah zara. You don't even have any benefit from the influence of avodah zara. So you had a knife of avodah zara. You're allowed to shecht with that knife. You're allowed to shecht with a knife. We'll see why you're allowed to avodah zara. We had more of test if you're allowed to use a shayfa for an avodah zara. Why are you allowed to use the knife? We'll see in a minute. But to cut the meat up with a knife of avodah zara, that's not allowed to. Some more explains. You're allowed to shech with it. Why are you allowed to shech with it? Because you actually, while the animal was alive, you can use it to plow your field. You can milk it. You can give birth to things, give birth to other calves. And now that you killed it, it's end of story. In other words, you ruined it. You didn't have hana. Remember, it's also bahana. This is not hana. Even though today I think a dead animal is worth a lot more than a live animal. When they sell all these livestock overseas, it's, you sell $100 a lamb. You go buy some parts of a lamb for $100. But nevertheless, I guess the Gemara sees it as a livestock is worth much more. It has so much more potential. So it's a makalkul, chayiv. Teish already explained, but in Shabbos, in Hilchos Shabbos, we say that if you shech, you're chayiv. In fact, 1/3 of Malach is there, because there's a whole different nekuda. There's melech, not a question of hana, it's melechas machshavas. What was your intention? If your intention was the shech, you carried out your machshava. That's the criteria of Shabbos. To separate criteria altogether from here, you don't have hana. So because here you're improving. A big slab of meat you can't eat, but if you cut it into pieces, you can, and you don't have enough from avodah zara. Big machek is a sheni when we say that. I'll look in a second. Sometimes you are having hana by shechting it. The animal is mama's ot. And the moment it dies, it's a nevela. So it's about to die. So if you shecht it now, you actually benefited. 5 minutes from now, the animal has zero value. It's a nevela. Now that you shechted it, it's kosher. So therefore, in that case, if it's avodah zara, you don't have hana. You are having hana. And it's usher. Big machek is shiny. When we say usher, what's usher? Is the entire animal usher? Or usher means only where the knife came in contact. Sometimes mechater mutter. Sometimes mechater mutter where the atme. Let's say you have a nice piece of steak. The time of the kurbana, you can go ahead and give it to your guest. But now that you cut it up, you ruined the beautiful steak. You ruined it. So the rule is the principle, not the rule. The principle is if you're having anah, it's asa. If you're not having anah, it's mutter. Now, generally speaking, when you shecht animals, it's not really called anah. Why shouldn't the entire animal be asa? Well, those are showing all the entire animals not asa. Why shouldn't it be asa? So Tejandra explains, because different than if you put wood in an oven. We had psachim in another place. Put wood in an oven. Any bread you cook in there, you bake in there is asa. Because without it, you have a piece of dough, not edible. And then the wood made the entire dough, so the entire thing is awesome. Here, the animal grew, and you fed it all these years. You put all this, invested all this kreiches. All the shechina does is it takes away the yisur of evim and achai. So it's not having that much input in the animal itself. It's only like an enabler. And therefore, it's only us, the part that it comes in contact with. The tefiglei, if anyone had a question, the tefiglei, why don't we just say, and they're nice when they more question the way they limp shot. The tefiglei, why tell me? Because of a tell me the knife itself probably has in it, shamnunis, fats left over in the knife, either because it's balua, either because it's pieces in the pogum, the piece of fat's over there, and therefore that should be us. Because from the veilus and everything else that it had over the time. Now, if the Isser of Avodah Zorah, those who say that that only those who say that only the surface where the knife came in contact with is Isser, they say it's very simple. What do you tell me a Meiser that it should be Asam Shamnunis? The reason why I'm telling you it's also Avodah Zorah is because the entire animal is Asr. If it's Shamnunis, we know that all you have to do is kailif, all you have to do is peel off that piece. So what's your next question? Unless by Avodah Zorah as well, it's the same outcome. So what I'm saying here, that forget the knife of Avodah Zorah. A regular knife of a knife with a vela. But the Gemara, b'chadosha, we're talking about you never shechted with a knife before, brand new knife. But the chadosha, if the brand new knife, we're talking about avodah zarah. We're talking about the way the Ashur lives up. We're talking about the knife of avodah zarah. But even the knife of avodah zarah, don't have to tell me the reason why it's also because of avodah zarah. Tell me because shamnunis. So we say no, it's a new knife. The only problem is avodah zarah. So you know what? If you never used it yet, but you never shechted. What's a knife? A knife doesn't become avodah zarah. You designated it for avodah zarah, but you didn't use it yet. If you remember when avodah zarah, we had all machlekes. If you make an avodah zarah, you didn't use it yet, whether it's us or not. And we made a chiluk between the Eid and the goy. A Eid might change his mind, do tshuva, but a goy, as soon as he makes this ready, also machlik Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Akiva there. So says the Gemara, Bein Rabbi Shmuel, Bein Rabbi Akiva, Misham she'avodah chavim hein. By avodah zarah itself, there's a machlekes. As soon as you make it, as soon as you made it, it's already avodah zarah. You planned that this should be an avodah zarah. Is it already avodah zarah chalais, or only after you bow down the first time? But that's the avodah zarah itself. Everyone agrees when it comes to accessories to avodah zarah, it's not avodah zarah until you use it. So if you tell me it's a brand new knife and you decided that this knife will be for avodah zarah, what makes it avodah zarah? All these are utensils for avodah zarah, accessories. See, boy, you say two answers. One answer is the pasuk, but you already cut gavzol lavichem. You all you did so far is you cut wood for the avodah zarah. So therefore, it has a chalais of avodah zarah, but there's no problem of shamnunis because you never used it yet for meat. Or you say, or we can say b'yishana, an old one. But shalivna ba'ur, that you burnt it in the fire, so there's no shamnunis left on that knife. So therefore, the only problem is avodah zarah. Each one we learned, let's say you did shecht with a knife of avodah zarah. So it sounds from here already that even though we said a minute ago that shechting with a knife of avodah zarah is all right because you're not having benefit, you're mekalkul. Sounds like only b'di'evet. Even though it's mutter, but you should do it. If you happen to shecht with a knife of avodah zarah, Rav says that what kailif, you should do klipa. That means you should remove. Just peel off that later. But Rabbi Chana and Rabbi Baba Chana mediach, you rinse it off. You just rinse it off. What's the machlekes? The machlekes is how far did the knife penetrate? The flavors of the knife into the animal. Now, in order to penetrate, you need heat. And the machlekes is the base hashchita. Now everyone agrees that it's warm. The blood there is blood, but it's not like cold. But the question is that warm enough to be considered chamin or not? And that's a machlekes. Not arguing mitzvahs, they're arguing halachic status of this dam. It's called the base hashchita. One of them holds that halachically is considered cold, and therefore the only problem is nothing. Medich, you wash it off. If you put cold treif on a plate, you just rinse it off. Base hashchita. Another one holds that the base hashchita is legally, halachically considered hot, and therefore you need klifa. Everyone agrees that water is hot. We understand now. We have to peel it. Rinse it. We have a rule. While it's exuding, it can't do two things at the same time. Exuding and bringing inside as well. That's the whole principle of kashering kelim hagola. So because as you're kashering the kelim and the treif comes out of the kelim, why doesn't it circulate and come right back in? Because we have a rule, the polit lebola. While it's busy exuding, it doesn't come back in. That's why Yisrael says you shouldn't leave it in too long when you're kashing. So they say the other opinion says it's hot. But the while it's exuding, it's not intaking. Or another answer is ikidami. Everyone holds cold, so we understand now why medich is enough. The one that says koilif. We have another word here. Agav duchke de sachin. The fact that you're pressing. We had to remember from Smicha years. The fact that the duchke sakina, because the knife is pressing inside, therefore, bola, the skin around it or the animal around it is beleya. Interesting from the few Rashis we have in Shas where Rashi says, and therefore I'm going to paskin what the halacha should be. Rashi generally was a parshan, but here he paskins, and then the machlek is showing you whether we follow Rashi or not. A few places we have that. I mean, we have a few places. Sorry, Luchumra. He said b'shal teira halachachar machmir, and if we need klifa. But then Rashi says this is all by the evidence. Anyway, you shouldn't shecht. So anyway, right? Don't shecht and rely that you do klifa, because the general rule is anytime you have to do something to make it kosher, we don't do it because what if you forget? What if you don't know?
She says this is all by the evidence.
Yeah, because exactly.
You already did it.
Exactly. Treif, okay, sakin treif. What about you? It happens you shecht an animal turn out to be treif. can you reuse that animal because you shechted an animal that turned out to be treif? Can you use that knife the way it is or not? Sakin treif, you shechted an animal came treif, is polig bod Rav Acha Ravina. There's an argument between Rav Acha Ravina. One of them said that you have to be kasher your knife before you can use it again. Why? Because it's beleya, some of the fat. This is not giving from the knife to the animal; it's absorbing from the animal into the knife. And the other one says, no, you don't. The knife didn't absorb anything from the animal, and if we can just rinse it off, and that's good enough. Again, because the base of shchit is not considered hot. The hilchos are filled with tzayin, and the halach is that even tzayin is good enough. However, we're talking about a knife. The knife itself is mutter. And because the knife is mutter, is different when before we're talking about it was the meat absorbing from the knife. The knife had shamlunis on it, and meat is very tender, so meat is much more susceptible to absorb. In this case here, we're talking about the knife. The animal was treif. Did the knife, the chalav that you use, absorb some of the chalav is a hard piece, and a hard piece generally is not absorbing. The only time it absorbs is through heat, but the base of shchit is not hot enough to get the knife to absorb, and therefore you can use the knife for chalav again, and you just rinse it off. Says the Gemara, however, if there is belisa the parcel and mikveh, if you have to have a shmata lying around that you can clean it off, maybe I had the word kippur, it means also to clean. You can clean it off, light tzarich. You don't even have to wash with water. As if a shmata is even less of a way of cleaning than water. Yeah. So then Tais has a whole discussion that, what about you if you use the same knife to cut other parts of the animal, do you have to kasher it then? Because now you're dealing with, you're much longer in the meat and you're talking about cutting off the fats. Can you use the same chalav knife as the fats? And we'll see later, you need a whole bunch of knives. Well, in my time, okay. Excuse me. Well, the hot water. My time, the reason is because why? The knife, the one who holds that you have to actually catch the knife is because they hold well. The knife is shechting the treif animal, it absorbs some of the treif. So you ask the question. Every animal was aser als eva menachai. So the while before the animal died, you were baileya from the animal, which is aser eva menachai. So if you're going to tell me that the knife absorbs, and that's why it turned out to be treif, the knife absorbs from the treif animal. No, every animal that you shecht till the animal dies, it's alive. It's an eva and it's an iser eva menachai. In fact, we discussed in the beginning in our Hagdama that the whole purpose, one of the reasons, according to some poskim of shchit, is not a mitzvah, is just to remove the Isser of Eva Menachai. So every knife has in it absorbed Eva Menachai. Says the Gemara, is Eva he tated Nami Bola Eva Menachai. Every heter should be Aser. Said you want to know. Eva's Bola. When is the knife actually Belea? The Chichaima, right? The knife is Belema only at the end when it's hot. Amos Kachaima, when does the animal really become hot? When you finish the shchita. And by then, there's no longer Eva Menachai. The moment you did roiv simonim, the animal is no longer eva menachai. Halachically, by Yid, it's dead. Mefacheses is jumping around. It's halachically mutter. It's dead, and therefore it didn't have a chance yet to heat up enough to pass it on. Mashenk, when it comes to treif, that roiv simonim, okay, now it's getting hot, and maybe it's absorbing some of the treif animal. In fact, every butcher needs 3 knives. The chalav yishech within it. And the chalav that you're going to go cut up the meat, and we don't want to use the chalav. The reason why you're not going to use the chalav to cut the meat is because the chalav is be so sharp, and you don't want any pegimus. So you want to dedicate it only for shechting. And one of them is shemechatah, so one of them is to chop up the meat, and and one of them is to cut up the fats. Saying I understand. But why you need 2 knives, the meat and the fats? Okay, the fats is treif, right? You're allowed to sell the fats and have enough from it, but then you're separating it. The fat is treif. You want to separate it from the meat. So why can't you have one knife to do both? Once you cut the fats, then there's a problem with the knife. So cut the meat first and then cut the fats. First cut the meat, and then you cut the fats. So what's the problem? Because we're worried that if sometimes you're not going to remember to do that order. And Shami, let's say you have a customer who wants fast right now, so you're going to work on the fats first. Shami asks the chalav, you're going to forget, and you're going to do the chalav first, and you remember you only have 1 knife, and then you're going to cut up the meat. And on the knife you can have leftover fats from the chalav. So why even now? If you have 2 knives, why won't he swap the knives by mistake or something? He might use the wrong knife for the fats. If you're worried about that, he'll use the knife in the wrong order. Why don't you worry? He'll use the wrong knife. So the Gemara, even that tzricha say the fact that you force him to have 2 knives That itself will remind him that you got to be careful. That itself will remind him you got to be careful. The tabach needs two different pots there with water. Water. One of them he's going to rinse the flesh. One of them he's going to rinse the fats. And you'll have them separately. What do you call it? And again, the one just have one need two for. But okay, challah make the water fatty, and your hands are all fatty and everything else. You're going to use it to wash your hands. The whole water comes fatty. So you'll do the meat first, which is kosher, and then afterwards you put the fats in the water, or you put your hands with the fats in the water. Same thing. We're worried that you're going to reverse the order. No, even if you have two pots, why he'll swap the pots? He knows he has two pots. If one is for challah, he won't make a mistake. A person should not take, let's say, the big piece of fat that are underneath the meat and try to place it on top of the meat. Take the fat and place it on top of the meat. And what's going to happen? The meat itself is pretty warm, and the fats are going to start melting and oozing out. You're going to have trace of fats sitting on the meat. The doyiv tarba is going to melt the fats. And the meat is going to absorb the fats. So the obvious question is, there are fats already above the meat, which is not kosher. So why aren't you worried about those fats? Why are you only worried about the fats that underneath that you're going to put it on top of the meat? What about the natural fats that's sitting on top of the meat and doesn't bother us? Even the normal way, not me. Why the animal standing there after you shach, why aren't you worried that the fats, maybe the din should be immediately you shachted, you got to remove the fats. So when that says there's a membrane there. The natural fats has a membrane, a very thick membrane between the fats and the meat, and therefore anything that oozes out is not going to go into the meat. Because even if you take the bottom fats and put it top, there's a membrane there. Whereas no, but when you play around with the fats underneath and you move it around, your hands are softening up the membrane, and therefore the fats are going to melt. And it's going to affect it's going to ooze, and there might be holes in there, or very, very tender, and the fat will ooze out into the meat.
From the residual.
From the meat. The meat itself is also warm. Yeah, exactly. The blood, the meat, and it's going to cause the blood. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow at 7 o'clock. We're going to do 2 blocks, because I'm not here Sunday morning. So we're going to do 2 blocks on Zoom tomorrow night, Mitzvah Hashem. Have a good Shabbos.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
When you're kashering, let's say for Pesach, and you've koshered your cutlery, so that is now kosher because you can only do one thing. It can't absorb any chametz. What happens to the pot with the boiling water? What action is it doing?
Okay, but we don't want to use that pot for Pesach again. We don't use the original pot unless you kasher it again for Pesach, because maybe it absorbs some of it back. On the other hand, the way we do it today, we do it before Pesach starts, so there's no Easter here whatsoever. Whatever you did was all mutter, and it's not bar not. It's all. So technically, the pot itself is not really usher. It's not really chametz. Yeah, it's not really chametz.
But if you decided to kasher something in Pesach, then the pot is gone.
It's very difficult. We don't kasher on Pesach because you have to make sure all the measurements are right, and chametz is also b'mashu, so it doesn't help. The whole idea that is bottom and all that, and saying and nice tal v'gam, if it's a lousy taste, is an argument how we deal with that on Pesach as well.
Yeah, and then how would the cutlery have become chametz?
The only kashering Pesach is through fire. We don't do kashering water.
Okay, thank you. Good Shabbos.
Okay, good Shabbos. 7